truth is, I thought like listening to manifesting in today's age, a few years ago, if you'd asked me, I would have kind of said, well, that's that foo-foo stuff, you know, I kind of like not into it.
Right.
But the truth is, you know what, about that time that I was kind of thinking that like it started to become big and a lot of people were doing like affirmations and things. I was realizing, you know, everything I'd ever done in my life was manifesting.
Yeah.
From day one, speaking into existence my life, and that I'm gonna, you know, I would talk to Charles about, you know, I'm gonna marry a beautiful girl one day, and I even said that she was gonna be like have an accent or be a foreigner or something like that. Like I kind of wanted somebody with a little bit of spice, something different about them.
Yeah.
And it turned out my wife's Hungarian, speaks fluent Hungarian, so and she's from Canada, you know, she's from another country. Like I thought it would be, you know, it wasn't. I thought it might be Australia or something. I didn't know, but I just knew it
Right.
was going to be something different.
Dan, you're the founder of Tapout, Billionaire Collectibles, Teacher.com, Grip Knife, and host of Pretty and Punk with your wife, which is just such a great show. Thank you for your time, man. I appreciate it.
Yeah, thanks for having me, brother.
I like
Excited to
to,
be on here.
yeah, thank you. I
And I
like to
love the
go
American flag behind you too there.
for sure, dude. It's one of my sponsors called Combat Flags, man. Great company, donates over $100,000 to help veteran suicide
Wow.
with a company out there, man. It's just a one-man shop, man. The guy's out there killing it, dude.
I'll pick something up. I'll be sure to pick something up from him.
Right on, man. You know, with my shows, I like to go back. Like, where did you grow up, man? What was childhood like for you?
It was, I mean, I had a great childhood as far as my family is a really tight knit family. My parents are still married today,
Nice.
happily married. And we've always, you know, my parents were always wanted to make sure we were happy. Me and my brother, it was me and my brother, and I have a younger brother, but we grew up in a really bad neighborhood.
Mm.
So like we had, but I really, you know, it's weird how looking back, you know, my dad will go, oh, it wasn't that bad. But I'll be like, we were in shootouts in front of our house, Dad. Mom got mugged in front of the house at the doorstep and knocked off of her feet, you know, and her purse ripped out of her hand. We've been in fights on our front lawn. All of our cars have been stolen, every single one of them at one time or another. Our house have been broken into 5 times. You know, it's like, it was that neighborhood, but we just didn't really think about it too much. We didn't, you know, we enjoyed our time. We had fun at school. We were, you know, fun loving kids, riding our bikes around, playing ninjas. So
Nice.
we didn't think about it too much, but we lived in kind of a mostly all black neighborhood. So a lot of my friends were black, and we just, you know, it was kind of, we just enjoyed ourselves.
Yeah. Well,
We
and
were
then
locals.
you end up being a police officer before you guys launched Tap Out there. Was that environment kind of the motivation to become a police officer, or what motivated you to become a police officer?
Yeah, absolutely. I think seeing that environment, seeing a lot of you know, bullies and underdogs, and you know, I always wanted to kind of be the protector of those guys. I wasn't scared to, you know, sometimes I maybe, you know, there's a couple times I said things when I probably shouldn't have said things. You know, it's like trying to
Sure.
stand up for people. I remember saying something to somebody and I got jumped in the McDonald's parking lot by like 5 guys. You know, it's like those things. It's just part of growing up. I'm sure you had this, you know, similar stuff in high school.
Yeah.
You know, it's just regular high school to me. But I just didn't like bullies, and I
Yeah.
wanted to stick up for them, stick up for the underdog, and so
Yeah.
it made me want to be a police officer. And actually, my partner in Tap Out, Charles, he was. We both decided to be police officers together, and so we both kind of entered the police department about the same time.
Okay. Man, that's so cool. And like while you're a police officer, you're running Tap Out, you're answering the Tap Out phone, like Tap Out clothing. People are making fun of you. At what point did you decide to walk away from being a police officer? And then how did it feel to leave that salary and then go to that entrepreneur? Like, I mean, that's scary.
Well, it kind of, you know, I tell the story it's a little bit out of context when I tell the story, but I actually got fired from the department that I was working for. You know, and so I was kind of depressed in a way that I got another job, but it wasn't at the police department that I wanted to be at. And so I just stayed there as like a part-time police officer for just a few years. And then I just quit altogether. So, um, it was just a time when I just thought, oh, you know what? This isn't, I had this expectation of being on, you know, LAPD or Long Beach PD, you know, being on this great police department and saving lives and being in the news and, you know, whatever. I mean, not really trying to be in the news, just trying to help people in a bigger way. And, you know, when I got mixed up in the department, it just wasn't so much like that. You know, like you have this expectation that you're going to be this superhero and the lines are really blurred. There's a lot of gray area and you find yourself taking people's cars from and I when I say I got fired, I really didn't get fired. I quit in lieu of, but it was the department was going through a lot of problems. It ended up getting absorbed by the sheriff's department just like 6 months later after I left, because the whole department was out of whack. And I was just on the wrong side of the fence when it happened. You know, I was on this team and the other team won. So
Right.
it was just I didn't get fired for anything. They I was on probation because I worked for years there as what they made a new position where I was like a reserve police officer that was getting paid. So I worked for like 3-4 years there, or 4 years there as a like this reserve police officer. But I was a regular police officer. I was still working every single day and on patrol. And then when the budget opened up, they hired me as a full-time officer, but I was still under probation. And so it gave them, when this whole thing went down with this other officer, it just gave them an excuse to just get rid of me because I was on probation. They didn't need a reason. Sure. They just got rid of me. So yeah, I was just part of this politics thing. And I had no hard feelings, but I knew at that point I probably wasn't going to go to a regular police department. And it just, I had a sour taste in my mouth for it after that. You know, I was taking people's cars that, you know, because their license was suspended, and they, you know, I can remember this guy crying, telling me, you know, he's not going to ever have he's going to lose his house because he can't get to his job and his family's there. And, you know, but I didn't have a choice. You know, sometimes we had things that we just had to do. We didn't have a choice. We didn't have a choice to let him go.
Yeah.
We had to take the car. And so it was just, and I saw some things, you know, that didn't feel right. And I just wanted to be better than that. And I'd been brought up better than that. And so I left a sour taste in my mouth. And at that point I was looking.
Yeah.
And so when this opportunity, when my partner came to me, he was at the sheriff's department. I was working for the police department. He's at the sheriff's department. And that was Charles. And he came to me, he goes, hey, we started training at the Gracies after we saw the first UFC.
Yeah.
And so we were driving down to Torrance, which is like an hour away. We were driving down there once a week to go train with Hoist. And it was just, we just loved it. You know, we wanted to be there all the time and wanted to be training all the time. So in between, we'd train in his garage or my house. We just lay out mats and train there.
Nice.
And he just said, what do you think about starting a clothing company? You see how many shirts the Gracies are starting? And I was like, yeah, that sounds pretty cool. But we didn't have grand expectations. So we were just thinking about selling shirts to our friends. And we talked about selling it. We'd go to these tournaments and there'd be tables there sometimes, you know, where people were set up.
Yeah.
And they were selling mostly like local companies. So like if there was like if Kleber was throwing or Joe Moreira was throwing a fight, a jiu-jitsu tournament, then you would be able to buy his shirts there. So we thought, what if we created a company that was kind of neutral, where it didn't matter if you trained with Joe Moreira or you trained with Kleber Luciano or you trade with, Hoist Gracie. It didn't matter where you trained. You could buy this shirt and it was neutral through all those camps. And then also, we were all about ultimate fighting. And even though it was still kind of underground then, and it was basically illegal in every state almost, you could buy our shirt and train at whatever camp you wanted to go train at, whether that be the Lion's Den or Shark Tank or wherever that was. So that was the idea. And we started putting one foot in front of the other. And we actually had another company. It was called Warrior Caliber. We had two names and we were trying to figure out which name would be better at that time. So we were for a while there, we were selling both shirts.
Okay.
So we had Warrior Caliber and we had Tapout shirts, and we didn't really see it as like a brand yet. It was kind of like, okay, let's just sell these two shirts because they were cool. And we're like, we have a Tapout shirt, but it wasn't like a brand yet.
Yeah.
And it just started, and then it just felt good when you started selling stuff. And we just said, man, if we could keep doing this for the rest of our lives, this would be pretty cool.
For sure. Mask was such a great dude, at least that I've seen from my perspective, right? What kind of person was Charles?
Another level. I mean, he was almost 10 years older than I was. So He was kind of my mentor. And I looked up, he had more life experience, and he actually trained me. So what happened was we started out as security guards at a high school, and then we went. And that's when we decided, let's be police officers, and so we put ourselves through the academy. But when we were security guards, he trained me. I was just out of high school, and my parents worked. My dad was a machinist for the school district, and my mom was a teacher's aide. So I kind of had this in. So I went when I was the youngest person ever to get hired at the school district as a security guard for, the school district. And so we worked for, they actually have a school police, but we weren't school police. We were just school security at the time.
Gotcha.
And so he trained me my first day on. He was the guy they put me with. And he was quiet, but he had been training in Taekwondo, and he could literally, he could he could just hold his foot right over my head and, just put it up like that. And he had this crazy back kick that he started teaching me. He goes, "Hey, we're going to work on back kicks every day." So while I was training with him, or while I was, going through the motions of learning how to do the security guard work, he said, "Hey, every day we come over here to this pole and we practice back kicks." And so he had this crazy back kick. If you ever watch Joe Rogan's back kick, it's pretty similar to that.
Yeah.
And he could launch somebody. He'd damn near knock a tree off its foundation. That's how hard he would kick. And, he's 6'2". I'm 5'7". He's 6'2". He's a lot bigger than I am. And so we just go over and we would spin and throw our kick up. And of course, my kick was a lot lower than his kick, but he taught me how to throw power into it. So even at a low kick, it was still like a mid kick, like a waist kick. Sure. And he's throwing up towards the face or touching him in the jaw if he wanted to. He's throwing this other kick, but we'd practice spin and touch the tree, spin and touch the tree. And that's where we just became really good friends, and we started talking all the time. He was reading the Bible a lot, and he was kind of introduced. I grew up in church, so we had a lot of discussions about that.
Yeah.
And we just had a really good relationship, and we became best friends. We started hanging out every day.
Man, so awesome. Now, you're also the founder of Billionaire Collectibles, which is where you curate autographed historical documents for leaders and entrepreneurs. You have teacher.com, which is where you teach people how to run a t-shirt company. No one better than you, for sure. You've got Grip Knife, which is super badass. Like, as an entrepreneur, founding multiple companies, having money, having success, what excites you the most when you wake up in the day, man?
I love that. Well, me and my wife have a podcast too called the Pretty and Punk Podcast.
Yeah.
And that's kind of exciting me right now. I'm excited about talking to other people that are like-minded and being in those circles, like you interviewing great people that, that I normally wouldn't probably, I would talk to maybe casually, but maybe not talk to in this way. Interrogate, really, being able to ask all those questions you want to ask.
Yep.
And so I think I enjoy that a lot with my wife. I enjoy doing that. I enjoy working with her. She's kind of my best friend. So we just enjoy doing that stuff now. And I'm feel fortunate that I can do that and have my kids here. And we work out of our house most of the time.
Yeah.
And I just didn't want to get in office again for a while. I've been years of going into the office and having this office. And I just decided, hey, let's do it all from home right now. So, we're kind of worked out with this whole COVID thing in California. We were on lockdown for so long. We're still on lockdown pretty much. So it all worked out pretty much for the better.
I love your guys' show and the stories that you guys have had, told on there about your own personal lives. Your wife, Ildiko, her story is unbelievable, how she got to where she's at and where she's at today. Just more of a personal question. Where'd you guys meet? And then what's your favorite part about married life, man?
Well, we actually met on Twitter. Now we have two different stories. I say she was chasing me around. She says I'm chasing her around. She's yelling in the background here. So anyways, I don't know. I saw this pretty girl on Twitter who owned this concrete company, and she was an actress, and she, was doing a bunch of cool stuff. And so we started talking, and I just so happened to be, I was in Vegas for UFC, and she was in Vegas for what they call the World of Concrete.
Okay.
And I said, hey, do you want to meet up? And we just started talking. We actually hung out for kept talking for like 6 months or so before we, became a thing, before we kissed each other.
Sure. Yeah.
So it worked out good. It was like enjoyed having, at that time, you know, Charles had passed. And
Mm.
so it was a few years after Charles had passed. And this is like 2012 or 13, somewhere around there. And I just really enjoyed having somebody else to talk business with, you know,
Yeah.
that bounce those conversations off of each other. And it just made it that much better that she was good looking too, you know,
Sure.
and that, and that, you know, she was a girlfriend too. So it all just worked out. It was just all that stuff together
Yeah.
made it pretty enticing.
Man, that's awesome. Love that story, dude. And you guys talk about on your show, which is kind of tailored towards entrepreneurs who have kids, right? You know,
Right.
you guys talk about like manifesting things. How important is it to manifest things?
I think I mean, you know, the truth is, I thought like listening to manifesting in today's age, a few years ago, if you'd asked me, I would have kind of said, well, that's that foo-foo stuff, you know, I kind of like not into it.
Right.
But the truth is, you know what, about that time that I was kind of thinking that like it started to become big and a lot of people were doing like affirmations and things. I was realizing, you know, everything I'd ever done in my life was manifesting.
Yeah.
From day one, speaking into existence my life, and that I'm gonna, you know, I would talk to Charles about, you know, I'm gonna marry a beautiful girl one day, and I even said that she was gonna be like have an accent or be a foreigner or something like that. Like I kind of wanted somebody with a little bit of spice, something different about them.
Yeah.
And it turned out my wife's Hungarian, speaks fluent Hungarian. So, and she's from Canada, you know, she's from another country. Like I thought it would be, you know, it wasn't, I thought it might be Australia or something. I didn't know, but I just knew it
Right.
was going to be something different.
Yeah.
And so she has that, and she has an interesting name. And then I always thought that, you know, we always said, you know, one day I'm going to live by the beach. I remember driving down Pacific Coast Highway and down the beach and looking at all these houses. One day I want to live over there. Now, like I live right in front of the water. I'm staring at water all wherever I look. So, you know, I mean, all those things. And even I was telling this story yesterday that I used to drive my van to LA, listening to, I couldn't afford Tony Robbins tapes. So I would record his infomercial on an audio tape, you know, like an old recorder.
Right.
And I would listen to his infomercial because I couldn't afford his program, which was like $800 at the time. And so I would listen to his infomercial for like inspiration. I can remember driving to LA, just tears flowing down my face, and just, you know, I'm going to do this. We're going to make it. We're going to be successful. We're going to make this happen. We're going to be the biggest clothing company on the planet, you know, just speaking all this stuff. And, and I just remember how much influence Tony had on my life at that time. And I didn't really have anybody to look up to other than Charles. You know, there was no mentors or anything like that in San Bernardino where we grew up.
Yeah.
And so I'd always had that in the back of my mind. And then several years later, when we were doing, you know, $100 million in sales, I ran across Tony at the Four Seasons in Las Vegas, and I saw him over there, and I was like, I'm never going to have this chance again to tell him how much he meant to me, you know, what he did for my life.
Yeah.
And I felt like I manifested this moment into existence. You know, he's sitting right there waiting for me to go talk to him. And so I went over there and said, you know, I said, Mr. Robbins, you know, I hope a minute of your time, you don't know me, but I'd love to tell you how you changed my life. And 2 hours later, we like sat there for like 2 hours talking. And I gave my business card, and I thought I'd never talk to him again. And a couple months later, he calls me, and you remember that infomercial that I'd been watching? He asked me to be on his infomercial. He says, I have Serena Williams, Mark Burnett, the founder of Survivor and The Apprentice, and Donna Karen, you know, the founder of the other clothing company.
Yeah.
And I want you to be my fourth person on this infomercial because you have a story that you need to speak to certain people who will listen to you. And so they came to my office and filmed me, and I was on probably like his last real television infomercial.
Sure.
And just an incredible moment for me, you know, having that come around circle like that.
Oh my gosh, man, that is unbelievable. I'm a huge fan of Tony Robbins and Ed Milet, and he talks about the same thing, driving out to Malibu, where I think he has one of his houses, like same thing, saying, I'm going to live here someday, and now he's got a house up here in Coeur d'Alene. And I'm the same thing, man. I'm like always trying to figure out how I can, manifesting, like, all right, I'm buying that property. And I always tell my wife, like, not really joking, but I'm like, hey, if once I find the property that I can pee off the front porch and no one's going to call the police on me, then I'm good, man. Like I found
Yeah,
the right property.
that's awesome.
Man, last question for you. I'm a huge music fan, so love to ask this. Like, what's the favorite type of music or favorite band for you?
It's so weird. I was all through high school, or actually started in junior high. Um, Me and my friend, the school, I went to the small little school, prep school. I actually got kicked out of there, but
Okay.
but I started there in seventh grade. My poor parents, it was horrible for them because they'd waited in line to get me in this school like for 3 days, and then I go and do something stupid and get kicked out. And but during that time, they used to do announcements every morning, and they would come and somebody would read the announcements in front of the class. And they said, hey, we need a DJ. We can't afford to pay a DJ. If anybody knows a DJ who can work under these circumstances, normally they pay a DJ like $200. They could only afford to pay $80.
Okay.
And me and my friend went to the principal and said, hey, we're DJs. But we weren't DJs. We didn't know anything about DJing at the time. We just remembered that these two DJs that came in were getting all the girls and everybody was talking to them. So we're in eighth grade. We tell them we're DJs and we'll DJ the next dance. And we literally, we didn't have Google or anything back then. So we had to go to like Radio Shack, talk to these guys and find out, what can we do to put this DJ system together. So we like put my dad's record player with his dad's record player and this amplifier that his dad had, which was just like a home amp. It wasn't like a industrial amp, it was like a home amp. And, it was horrible. And these wood speakers, like the old wood speakers.
Totally, dude.
It was horrible. It was a horrible, and a Radio Shack. It was called Realistic Mixer, and it was just like a 4-channel mixer that we had bought. It was the only investment that we really made because that's how we didn't have a lot of money, and so we knew we were going to make $80, so we like borrowed like $80 from our parents so we could buy this mixer, and we DJ'd our first dance, and we became DJs at that point, and we DJ'd all through high school. We started DJing all the colleges and high schools or in the area, junior highs, and we became probably the biggest DJs in the area after a while. And so that's how I put myself through high school. What? And so I'm really eclectic as far as music goes, man. I listen to everything. I mean, I can find greatness in Sinatra. And I mean, if you look at my phone, I'll have Sinatra, Barry Manilow, a bunch of 70s music, every rap song you've ever heard from the 80s to now.
Yeah.
A little bit of country here and there. Pretty much everything. I love show tunes. I like everything. So, and I even love my kids, all the Disney music. I always download it because I'm kind of into that too.
Yeah,
so
absolutely.
I enjoy all that stuff. So there's nothing really that, to say that I like one music over another. It would be hard for me to say. I listen to every single type of music out there. It's always just been a part of who I am. And I feel like it makes you up as a person.
Yep. Oh yeah, my kids are 11 and 8, man, and same sort of thing, man. Like we always have music playing in the house, and it's from worship to Nickelodeon to Disney to metal, hip hop.
I love worship music too. I love tons of Christian bands, and I especially a lot of Christian bands that were around when I was listening to some Christian bands when I was younger.
Yeah,
and so like the Altar Boys, and I listened to a lot of punk, Black Flag over here. All the punk music. So. Like I said, everything. Nothing is off of my list. I'll listen to folk, whatever. It doesn't matter.
Right on. Dan, where can folks follow you? Where do you like them to follow you and connect with you most? Definitely they need to go check out Pretty and Punk podcast, but is there, where's the best place for folks to connect with you at?
Yeah, I'd say Instagram's probably the best. I'm pretty responsive, and I have somebody who helps me with that. So I get a lot of messages on there, especially lately.
Yeah.
It's the Pretty and Punk podcast. We're on there. We put out an episode every week of entrepreneurs that have kids, and really how they're able to do what they do, because it's it's challenging running a business that you love and
Totally.
having a family that you love and trying to give, if you want 360 success, you got to have success in all those areas. You
Yep.
can't go build a business and turn it into this, huge company, this $100 million company, and then turn around, your family's gone. That's not
Yep.
success to me.
Yep.
So there's a lot of people have jumped off buildings who got a lot of money. And, so we're trying to help people not be those people. And, so we enjoy that. And, you can go to Pretty and Punk, or Pretty and Punk podcast on Instagram, or Tapout Punkass on Instagram. Either one of those, you can catch us.
Right on.
And we love talking to you, love hearing people's stories about their business and what they're doing right now. I encourage people to jump on there and message me.
It's a great show, man. And absolutely, you guys, you're very responsive on Instagram. So just want to give that shout out for sure. Dan, absolute honor to have you on the show. Top Rated May was inspired by Tapout. It's still going today, man. You and your wife are doing amazing things, man. Keep changing the world. Such an honor. Thank you for your time, man.
Thanks, brother. I appreciate it.
Thank you so much for watching the show today. I appreciate it. If you could, please leave a rating and review on our Apple podcast. The link is down below. That helps us get our message out, get the show out, helps us get ranked out there on the Apple podcast. Also, leave a comment below, man. I'd love to know what part of this show made the most impact on you. I respond to every comment on there. And please share this video, whether you're watching on Facebook, Instagram, YouTube. Please share it out. We want to make sure that we impact as many people as we can with the guests that come on my show and highlight those guests and what they've got going on, and they're changing the world. So thank you so much for the time. So appreciate it. Have an awesome day.